Andrea Yates is a former Houston, Texas resident who confessed to drowning her 5 children in their bathtub on June 20, 2001. She had been suffering for some time with very severe postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. Yates was represented by Houston criminal defense attorney George Parnham. The then Harris County, Texas district attorney asked for the death penalty in Yates' 2002 trial. Her case placed the Martin rules with the Irresistible Impulse Test, a legal test for sanity, under close public scrutiny in the United States. Yates was convicted of capital murder. After the guilty verdict, but before sentencing, the state abandoned its request for the death penalty in light of false testimony by one of its expert psychiatric witnesses. Yates was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. The verdict was overturned on appeal. On July 26, 2006, the Texas jury in her retrial found that Yates was not guilty by reason of insanity. She was consequently committed by the court to the North Texas State Hospital, Vernon campus, a high-security mental health facility in Vernon, Texas, where she received medical treatment and was a roommate of Dennis Schlosser, another woman who committed filicide by killing her infant daughter. In January 2007, Yates was moved to a low-security state mental hospital in Kerrville, Texas. Background: Yates was born in Hallsville, Texas. She is the youngest of 5 children to Jutta Karen Kaya, a German immigrant, and Andrew Emmett Kennedy, whose parents were born in Ireland. Andrea was bulimic during her teenage years. She also suffered from depression and, at the age of 17, spoke to a friend about suicide. She graduated from Milby High School, in Houston, in 1982. She was the class valedictorian, captain of the swim team, and an officer in the National Honor Society. Yates completed a 2-year pre-nursing program at the University of Houston and graduated from the University of Texas School of Nursing. From 1986 until 1994, she worked as a registered nurse at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. In the summer of 1989, she met Russell "Rusty" Yates at the Sunscape Apartments in Houston, 2 months her junior. They soon moved in together and were married on April 17, 1993, and they announced that they would seek to have as many babies as nature allowed. Afterwards, they bought a 4-bedroom house in the town of Friendswood. In February 1994, their first child, a son named Noah, was born. Shortly thereafter, Rusty accepted a job offer in Florida, so the family relocated to a small trailer in Seminole. By the birth of their third son, Paul, they moved back to Houston and purchased a GMC motorhome. Following the birth of their fourth son, Luke, Andrea became depressed. The media alleged that her condition was influenced by the extremist sermons of Michael Peter Wereniecki, the preacher who sold them their bus. Her family was concerned by the way that she was so captivated by the ministry unregistered trademark S-words. On June 16, 1999, Rusty found Andrea shaking and chewing her fingers. The next day, she attempted to commit suicide by overdosing on pills. She was admitted to the hospital, and prescribed antidepressants. Soon after her release, she begged her husband to let her die as she held a knife up to her neck. Once again hospitalized, she was given a mixture of medications including Haldol, an antipsychotic drug. Her condition improved immediately, and she was prescribed it on her release. After that, Rusty moved the family into a small house for the sake of her health. Andrea appeared temporarily stabilized. In July 1999, she succumbed to a nervous breakdown, which culminated in 2 suicide attempts and 2 psychiatric hospitalizations that summer. She was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. Her first psychiatrist, Dr. Eileen Starbranch, testified that she urged the couple not to have more children, as it would guarantee future psychotic depression. They conceived their 5th and final child approximately 7 weeks after her discharge. She stopped taking the Haldol in March 2000 and gave birth to daughter Mary on November 30 of that year. She seemed to be coping well until the death of her father on March 12, 2001. She then stopped taking medication, mutilated herself, and read the Bible feverishly. She also stopped feeding her youngest child, Mary. She became so incapacitated that she required immediate hospitalization. On April 1, 2001, she came under the care of Dr. Mohammed Saeed. She was treated and released. On May 3, 2001, she degenerated back into a near-catatonic state and drew a bath in the middle of the day. She would later confess to police that she had planned to drown the children that day, but had decided against doing it then. She was hospitalized the next day after a scheduled doctor visit. Her psychiatrist determined she was probably suicidal and had filled the tub to drown herself. She continued under Dr. Saeed's care until June 20, 2001, when Rusty left for work, leaving her alone to watch the children against Dr. Saeed's instructions to supervise her around the clock. Rusty's mother, Andrea Yates, had been scheduled by him to arrive an hour later to take over for her. In the space of that hour, Andrea drowned all 5 children. She started with John, Paul, and Luke, and after drowning them in her bathtub, laid them in her bed. She then drowned Mary, whom she left floating in the tub. Noah came in and asked what was wrong with Mary. He then ran, but she soon caught and drowned him. She then left him floating in the tub and laid Mary in her brother's arms. Afterwards, she called the police. Then she called Rusty, saying only it's time repeatedly. Trials, Yates confessed to drowning her children. Prior to her second trial, she told Dr. Michael Wellner that she waited for Rusty to leave for work that morning before filling the bathtub because she knew he would have prevented her from harming the children. After the killings, police found the family dog locked up. Rusty advised Wellner that it had normally been allowed to run free, and was so when he had left the house that morning, leading the psychiatrist to allege that she locked it in a cage to prevent it from interfering with her killing the children one by one. Rusty got a family friend, George Parnham, to act as his wife's attorney. Although the defense's expert testimony agreed that Yates was psychotic, Texas law requires that, in order to successfully assert the insanity defense, the defendant must prove that he or she could not discern right from wrong at the time of the crime. In March 2002, a jury rejected the insanity defense and found her guilty. Although the prosecution had sought the death penalty, the jury refused that option. The trial court sentenced her to life imprisonment in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice with eligibility for parole in 40 years. On January 6, 2005, a Texas Court of Appeals reversed the convictions, because California psychiatrist and prosecution witness Dr. Park Dietz admitted he had given materially false testimony during the trial. In his testimony, Dietz had stated that shortly before the killings, an episode of Law & Order had aired featuring a woman who drowned her children and was acquitted of murder by reason of insanity. Author, and later Yale University lecturer, Susanna Malley, was covering the trial for the Oprah magazine, the New York Times Magazine and NBC News. She had previously been a writer for Law & Order and immediately reported that no such episode existed. The appellate court held unanimously that the jury might have been influenced by Dietz's false testimony and that therefore a new trial would be necessary. On January 9, 2006, Yates again entered pleas of not guilty by reason of insanity. On February 1, 2006, she was granted release on bail on the condition that she be admitted to a mental health treatment facility. On July 26, 2006, after 3 days of deliberations, Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity, as defined by the state of Texas. She was thereafter committed to the North Texas State Hospital Vernon campus. In January 2007, Yates was moved to a low-security state mental hospital in Kerrville, Texas. Although psychiatrists for both the Texas state prosecutors and Yates' defense lawyers agreed that she was severely mentally ill with one of several psychotic diseases at the time she killed her children, the state of Texas asserted that she was by legal definition aware enough to judge her actions as right or wrong despite her mental defect. The prosecution further implied spousal revenge as motive for the killings, despite the conclusion of defense experts that there was no evidence to support such a motive. Although the original jury believed she was legally aware of her actions, they disagreed that her motive was spousal revenge. The jury in 2006 completely disagreed with the prosecution's assertions and her earlier conviction from 2002 was overturned. Russell Yates, according to trial testimony in 2006, Dr. Saeed advised Rusty, a former NASA engineer, not to leave Andrea unattended. However, he began leaving her alone with the children in the weeks leading up to the drownings for short periods of time, hoping to improve her independence. He had announced at a family gathering the weekend before the drownings that he had decided to leave her home alone for an hour each morning and evening, so that she would not become totally dependent on him and his mother for her maternal responsibilities. Her brother, Brian Kennedy, told Larry King on a broadcast of CNN's Larry King Live that Rusty expressed to him in 2001 while transporting her to Devray treatment facility that all depressed people needed was a swift kick in the pants to get them motivated. Her mother, Jutta Karen Kennedy, expressed shock when she heard of Rusty's plan while at the gathering with them, saying that she wasn't stable enough to care for the children. She noted that her daughter demonstrated she wasn't in her right mind when she nearly choked her still toothless infant daughter Mary by trying to feed her solid food. According to authors Susie Spencer and Susanna Malley, who investigated her story in great detail, it was during a phone call Dr. Saeed made to Rusty during the breaking news of the killings that he first learned that she was not being supervised full-time. Andrea's first psychiatrist, Dr. Eileen Starbranch, says she was shocked to disbelief when the Yateses expressed a desire to discontinue her medication so that she could become pregnant again during an office visit with them. She warned and counseled them against having more children, and noted in the medical record 2 days later, apparently patient and husband plan to have as many babies as nature will allow. This will surely guarantee future psychotic depression. Nevertheless, she became pregnant with her fifth child, Mary, only 7 weeks after being discharged from Dr. Starbranch's care on January 12, 2000. Despite Rusty's statements to the media that he was never told by psychiatrists that she was psychotic nor that she could harm her children, and that he would have never had more children had he known otherwise, Andrea revealed to her prison psychiatrist, Dr. Melissa Ferguson, that prior to their last child, she had told Rusty that she did not want to have sex because Dr. Starbranch had said she might hurt her children. Rusty, she said, simply asserted his procreative religious beliefs, complimented her as a good mother, and persuaded her that she could handle more children. Author Susanna Malley highlighted Russell Yates's continuing sense of unreality regarding having more children. During the trial, he had successfully maintained the position that Andrea would be found innocent. He had fantasies of having more children with her after she was successfully treated in a mental health facility and released on the proper medication. He worked his way through various fixes for their damaged lives, such as a surrogate motherhood and adoption before giving in to reality. Medical community, Rusty contended that as a psychiatrist, Dr. Saeed was responsible for recognizing and properly treating his wife's psychosis, not a medically untrained person like himself. He also claimed that, despite his urgings to check her medical records for prior treatment, Dr. Saeed had refused to continue her regimen of the antipsychotic Haldol, the treatment that had worked for her during her first breakdown in 1999. He added that she was too sick to be released from her last stay in the hospital in May 2001. He said he noticed the staff lower their heads as if in shame and embarrassment, turning away without saying a word. The hospital had no other choice due to the 10-day psychiatric hospitalization insurance constraints of their provider, Blue Cross Blue Shield, subcontracted by Magellan Health Services. Antidepressants and homicidal ideation. Rusty and his birth family came to believe that a combination of antidepressants improperly prescribed by Dr. Saeed in the days before the tragedy was responsible for Andrea's violent, psychotic behavior. According to Dr. Moira Dolan, executive director of the Medical Accountability Network, homicidal ideation was added to the warning label of the antidepressant drug efficacy as a rare adverse event, in 2005. Yates, she said, had been taking 450 mg, twice the recommended maximum dose, for a month before killing her children. Dr. Dolan reviewed Yates's medical record at the request of Rusty. Dr. Lucy Pierre, an expert witness hired by Yates's defense team, countered their contention regarding the administration of her antidepressants, saying the dosages prescribed by Dr. Saeed are not uncommon in practice and had nothing at all to do with her re-emergent psychosis. She suggested rather that her psychosis returned as a result of the Haldol having been discontinued by her doctor 2 weeks earlier. The oral form of haloperidol takes €6 days after discontinuation to reach a terminal plasma level of under 1.5%, a medical standard for complete elimination of a drug from the body. Religious influences. Media outlets alleged that Michael Peter Wireniecki, a traveling preacher whom Rusty had met while attending Auburn University, bears some responsibility for the deaths due to his of fire and brimstone message and certain teachings found in his newsletter The Perilous Times that they had received on occasion and which was entered into evidence at the trial. However, both Rusty and Michael Wireniecki reject these accusations. Rusty said that his family unregistered trademark's relationship with the Wireniecki's was not that close and that Wireniecki did not cause her delusions. Wireniecki maintained that his correspondence with them was with the intention of helping them strengthen their marriage and find the love that he says his own family had found in Jesus. Both men agreed that the alleged connection between his message and her mental state was nothing more than media-created fiction. The adherence of the Yates family to the principles of the quiverful lifestyle, which encourages couples to have many children, has been posited as a factor contributing to the mental and emotional stress that she experienced. Some sources have suggested the lack of community may have contributed to her isolation. While in prison, Andrea stated she had considered killing the children for 2 years, adding that they thought she was not a good mother and claimed her sons were developing improperly. She told her jail psychiatrist, "It was the 7th deadly sin. My children weren't righteous. They stumbled because I was evil. The way I was raising them, they could never be saved. They were doomed to perish in the fires of hell." She also told her jail psychiatrist that Satan influenced her children and made them more disobedient. See also, Murder of Zachary Turner, footnotes. References, Beanstalk, Shariel Mothers Who Kill Their Children and Postpartum Psychosis, Volume 32, No. 3 Southwestern University Law Review, 451. Karam, The Insanity Defense and Game Theory, Reflections on Texas v. Yates, Volume 30, No. 4 Journal of the American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law, 470. O'Malley, Suzanne, Are You There Alone? The Unspeakable Crime of Andrea Yates, ISBN 0-7434-6629-2, see also author website, Spencer, Breaking Point, ISBN 0-212-93871-3, see also author website, Batts, R.E. Will Justice Be Served on Andrea Yates? USA Today Magazine, external links. Timeline of Andrea Yates' life and trial. Who is Andrea Yates? A Short Story of Insanity, Deborah Deno, Crime Library Review, About.com profile, Despite Not Guilty Verdict, Doctor Who examined Yates is unconvinced. ABC News. PowerPoint evidence presented by Dr. Michael Wellner during trial.